You are about to revisit a disappearance that once shook an entire region, then fell silent for more than 2 decades. Three university students carrying tents and cameras left their dormitory on a summer morning in 2002. They planned to be gone for only 2 nights, then return. But from the moment they stepped into the wilderness of southern Colorado, no one ever saw them again. The disappearance left no trace, no bodies, no cries for help, no clue strong enough to sustain an investigation. And then time slowly made people forget. Until one afternoon in April 2023, when an old phone was found at a remote bus stop in Kansas. In its memory were only 6 photographs. One of them was an image of the 3 students who had vanished, taken on the very night they disappeared. But there was something strange. The photo was not a selfie. Someone else had been holding the camera. Who took that picture? Why did it only surface after 21 years, and what really happened in that forest? If you are ready, let us follow every trace to uncover the truth that has been buried for the past 2 decades. The phone was found on an afternoon in April 2023 at a small bus stop along Highway number 56, crossing through McPherson County, Kansas. It was a place where hardly anyone stopped, with only a few weary Greyhound buses passing each week, carrying passengers adrift in the heart of America. The person who found the phone was a night shift janitor as he was gathering trash around the windswept waiting benches. It was an old, scratched-up phone with no SIM card, but the battery was still intact. The screen lit up with a single swipe displaying only one folder: saved photos. The first photo that appeared was an outdoor shot: 3 young people, 2 men and 1 woman, laughing brightly against a green forest backdrop with a hazy mountain range in the distance. The sunlight had a golden hue like late summer afternoon. All 3 were dressed in hiking clothes, looking full of life and at ease. But what stunned the janitor was not their expressions, but the timestamp below the frame: 7:04 in the evening, June 15th, 2002. Just 1 day later, the phone and that photo had reached the local police station. At first, no one understood what was happening until data from the recovery software revealed that the names of the 3 people in the photo matched an old case file. That file had lain dormant for over 2 decades: the disappearance of 3 University of Colorado students in the summer of 2002, when they vanished completely from a forest, leaving no trace behind. No one had ever seen this photo before. And even more baffling, no one understood why, after 21 years, it had resurfaced on a device that had not been manufactured since 2010, abandoned nearly 800 miles from the original scene. The news exploded. The 3 old names were brought up again in the media. Families who had once let go of hope were drawn back into a whirlwind of suspicion. And in that photograph, besides the 3 familiar faces, there was one small detail almost overlooked: a faint shadow at the edge of the image, a shape that did not match anyone in the group. A 4th person. In the summer of 2002, the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, stretching across southern Colorado, were still little known to the average traveler. It was a wild, rugged land famed for its desolate trails, dense fir forests, and glacial lakes scattered at the foot of the peaks. The area drew adventurers more than tourists. That summer, the weather was unusually dry, with clear skies and prolonged sunshine, making it an ideal destination for hiking, camping, and climbing. About 30 miles from the disappearance site lay the small town of Craver's Mill, with a population of only a few hundred, home to an old gas station, a single bar, and a local police outpost. In 2002, mobile phone networks had not yet reached deep into the woods. Those who wished to explore the area had to come well-prepared: paper maps, compasses, flashlights, and short-range radios. Many had said if you went too far in without leaving a trace, the forest would swallow you silently and completely. At the center of those mountains was the Rio Chama National Preserve, designated as a free camping zone. There were no checkpoints, no guards, only a rotting wooden sign that read, "Leave no trace," a slogan of the survivalist travel community, but also a foreboding omen for those who stepped inside. It was that very place that 3 second-year students from the University of Boulder chose to begin their weekend trip, a choice that seemed random, a destination visited by dozens of other camping groups. But only this group never returned. And for 21 years afterward, no one could point to which trail they took or where exactly they vanished within that deep, shadowy forest. The group of 3 missing students included Devante, Liora, and Trent, all enrolled at the University of Colorado Boulder campus. They did not study the same major but met through the university's outdoor photography club, which organized excursions, photography sessions, and explorations of the wilderness. Devante, 20 years old, was a sophomore majoring in ecology. He was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and raised in a Latin American family. Devante was known for his calm demeanor, love of nature, and habit of hiking alone with a notebook to record plant species. He was the primary planner of this trip, mapping the route, organizing food, and packing supplies. Among the group, Devante was considered the most experienced in survival skills. Liora, 19, was a student of visual arts who grew up in Denver. She had deep red hair, sharp features, and an independent personality. Liora was not skilled in navigation, but she was the group's main photographer. Her Minolta X700 film camera always hung around her neck. The final photos she took, later recovered, became one of the key clues analyzed over many years. Trent, 21, was studying computer engineering. He was Devante's dorm roommate, tall and slender, wearing glasses. Unlike the other two, Trent had only joined the club a few months prior, but quickly became close with the group. He often carried a small handheld camcorder. Many of the videos from their previous trips were stored on his personal hard drive. All three were considered exemplary students with no criminal records, no complicated relationships, and no signs of psychological distress. They did not drink alcohol, did not use drugs, and according to friends, were the kind of people who would never leave without telling someone. That trip was no exception. They clearly informed their families of the destination with plans to return by Sunday afternoon. One of the last people to speak with them was Liora's boyfriend, who received a message from her on Friday afternoon. "We've arrived. Camping by the lake tonight. Signal is weak. I'll text you tomorrow." That was the final message. After that, the phones of all three went silent. No emergency calls, no distress signals, only complete silence that lasted for over 2 decades. On June 14, 2002, early on a Friday morning, Devante, Liora, and Trent set off from Boulder in Devante's family's 1998 Subaru Forester. The car had been thoroughly checked before the trip, filled with gas and packed with sufficient drinking water, packaged food, and standard camping gear. According to the hand-drawn map by Devante, they planned to follow the Crystal Ridge Trail, a little-known path, and camp for 2 nights near Timberline Lake, an unofficial site known for its breathtaking scenery. The last gas station the group stopped at was on the southern edge of the town of Craver's Mill. Surveillance cameras captured footage of the three entering, Devante buying ice, Trent picking up 2 bags of snacks, while Liora stood taking photos of the old car under the morning sun. It was the last time they were clearly seen in any image. The gas station owner, in a later statement, described them as gentle, polite, nothing unusual about them. That afternoon, the group began hiking into the forest, leaving the car at a clearing off the roadside, a spot often used as a starting point into the preserve. Other hikers that day remembered seeing the Subaru, but none encountered or heard anyone on the Crystal Ridge Trail. It was a rugged route strewn with gravel, winding through dense pine woods, crossing several small streams before ascending toward the mountain's edge. Around 4 in the afternoon, based on recovered data from the Minolta camera, the group had reached the vicinity of Timberline Lake. A few photos were taken there, the lake's surface calm and still. Streaks of late sunlight stretched across tree trunks, casting shadows, a shot of Trent filming Devante tending a fire, and a portrait of Liora smiling with her face lifted toward the sun. The last photo displayed a timestamp of 7:18 in the evening, but after that, there was nothing more. No further messages were sent, no calls, no new images. And when the camera was later recovered, the film roll ended exactly on that final frame, uncorrupted, undeleted yet, with unused space still remaining. That night the sky was clear with no rain, no strong winds, a quiet, ideal night for camping in the forest. But what happened lay beyond all conventional theories. Sunday, June 16, 2002. The afternoon was fading in Boulder, and the families of the 3 students began to feel anxious. None of them had received any messages since Saturday morning, something all 3 had promised to do. Liora's boyfriend, after many failed attempts to reach her, went to report it to the campus police. By that evening, the families of Devante and Trent also confirmed that no one had heard any news from their sons. On Monday morning, the Subaru Forester was discovered by an early group of hikers parked intact at the edge of the clearing that led into the Crystal Ridge Trail. The doors were locked with no signs of forced entry. Inside there was half a bottle of water, an unopened bag of crackers, and 2 forest maps, one of them marked with a red pen outlining the trail. The fourth backpack, meant for shared gear like the tent and mini gas stove, was also missing from the trunk. This indicated the group had indeed departed as planned. A ranger team was deployed by Tuesday morning. They swept the entire Crystal Ridge Trail, both from above by helicopter and on foot with tracking dogs. By noon, they found traces of a temporary campsite near the edge of Timberline Lake, 2 tarps pitched unevenly, a ring of firestones still faintly warm, several shoe prints in soft soil, but absolutely no people. No blood, no abandoned items, as if the group had just stood up and left a few hours prior. What was strange was how orderly everything seemed. All 3 personal backpacks had vanished from the site, along with the camera, the camcorder, food, and clothes. The ground showed no signs of struggle or hasty flight. Only one detail puzzled the search team. On the trunk of a nearby tree, there was a carved symbol, 3 interlocking circles not resembling any known trail markers the rangers had ever seen. It was freshly etched with a knife at a height close to an adult's eye level. From that point on, no further clues were found. The scent trail for the dogs was lost near a rocky ledge where a steep cliff face and thick canopy blocked any clear view. If there had been any cell signal, it was never registered by any tower in the region. None of the other camping groups reported hearing screams or anything unusual that night. Police were forced to admit all 3 had vanished completely right in the heart of that wilderness, without leaving even a final sound behind. The official investigation was launched just 3 days after the group of students went missing. The Costilla County Sheriff's Department, in coordination with the Federal Forest Service and local rescue units, immediately cordoned off the forest area around Timberline Lake, the last known location showing signs of life. Search teams were divided into several groups, present continuously for 2 weeks, using both drones and tracking dogs, but found nothing beyond the known campsite traces. Cell signal records were examined. The nearest towers confirmed there were no transmissions from Devante's, Liora's, or Trent's phones after 7 o'clock in the evening on June 14th. This matched the timestamp of the last recorded photo. Police later checked bank logs, social media accounts, and traffic cameras. No activity was recorded after the disappearance. One notable witness claimed to have seen 3 young individuals leaving the forest on Saturday morning, walking toward the highway about 2 miles from the parking area. This man, Ellis Monroe, a local hunter, said he saw a mixed group with large backpacks looking tired but not panicked. However, his statement was dismissed due to a time discrepancy. According to the photo log, the group was still at the campsite as late as 7 o'clock that same evening, after the time Ellis claimed to have seen them earlier that morning. Years later, independent investigators questioned why the police had so quickly dismissed this testimony when it was one of the few details that might have offered an alternative lead. In the first weeks, multiple theories emerged. They got lost, had an accident, were attacked by wild animals, or even entered into a group suicide pact. But none of the theories explained why not a single body or belonging was ever found, or why all 3 vanished at the same time in the same place without leaving even the smallest trace. Another possibility considered was abduction. But the area had virtually no history of crime, no witnesses reported seeing strangers or suspicious vehicles, and every route out of the forest had been thoroughly searched. A few months later, the case was officially reclassified as suspended due to lack of evidence. The file was closed in October of 2002. The families of the victims continued to organize private searches for years, hiring detectives using metal detectors, even enlisting local hunters, but all efforts returned empty-handed. The disappearance became part of the unsolved files of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. And then, like most stories without an ending, it slowly faded into silence. In the media, the names of the 3 students were only mentioned again on anniversaries as a somber tragedy in the wilderness of the West. In the years following the disappearance, the families of Devante, Liora, and Trent each carried their grief in different ways. Devante's mother moved away from Albuquerque, sold the house where her son had grown up, and avoided all media contact. Liora's father, a former art professor, organized photo exhibitions in memory of his daughter during the early years, but by 2008 he too withdrew from public activities. Only Trent's family kept the website Bring Them Back active for more than a decade with the headline, "No one vanishes without a trace, unless someone wants to erase it." Yet over time their voices were drowned out by the flood of new cases. Discussion forums dwindled to scattered posts, mostly speculation or unverified conspiracy theories. The website was hacked once in 2014, then shut down entirely in 2017. The case all but disappeared from the public eye, swallowed by the busyness and forgetfulness of modern life. In the forest where they once walked, nature continued to renew itself. The Crystal Ridge Trail now has official signage. Timberline Lake is marked on digital maps, and tourists once again come to camp as if no tragedy had ever taken place. Younger visitors, those who came later, rarely remember the story of the 3 students from that year. The carved mark of 3 interlocking circles on the tree trunk, which had stirred so much attention during the early investigations, has now faded, its bark peeling away with time. Only one place still holds that memory: the Costilla County Records Archive, where the case is filed under Unexplained Disappearances, Level 4. Inside the case box are printed photos from the gas station camera, Devante's hand-drawn map, several handwritten letters from the victims' parents, and a VHS tape showing the 3 camping together the previous winter. They laugh, joke, and roast marshmallows by the fire. Those faces were once so real, and then they vanished. Until April of 2023, when an old, dust-covered, scratched-up phone brought those 3 names back again. On headlines, on the evening news, and in the cold questions still unanswered. Who took that photograph? And why did it appear 21 years later in a place 800 miles away? The phone appeared on April 12, 2023, left behind on a wooden bench at a small bus stop on the outskirts of Galveston, McPherson County, Kansas. The janitor initially thought it was trash, but upon seeing a faint blinking light and a functioning screen, he decided to turn it over to the local police as a precautionary procedure. The phone was a Samsung model from 2010 with the SIM card removed and no new apps installed in many years. However, when the technical team recovered the internal memory, they discovered a single photo folder containing 6 outdoor images, all time-stamped mid-June 2002. Most notably, the first photo featured the 3 missing students, Devante, Liora, and Trent, standing together in the forest, smiling brightly, showing no signs of fatigue or fear. The image was sharp enough for facial recognition technology to verify their identities. Immediately, the device was transferred to the FBI. The Bureau confirmed that the photo had never been stored on any public or private system before, meaning it could not have been downloaded from the internet or copied from the camera seized in 2002. The EXIF data in the image clearly stated the photo had been taken by a different device, then copied onto the current phone not long before it was abandoned. The fingerprints on the phone did not match any investigator, victim, relative, or technician previously involved in the case. But that was not the most bizarre detail. Zoom analysis of the 4th photo revealed a new, previously undisclosed detail: the reflection of a 4th person, faint and blurred, standing slightly off frame on the lens of the camcorder Trent was holding. The figure was tall and slender, wearing a hat, face obscured by shadow. The distance and angle suggested that this person was not part of the group and had never been identified in the original case file. The final photo on the phone appeared to be a long-distance shot, a wooden cabin in the middle of the forest with a rusted tin roof, no clear geographical markers. However, the image was tagged with GPS coordinates 37.6552 degrees, north 104.8984 degrees west, a location deep in the San Isabel National Forest, Colorado. When cross-checked against a 2002 map, the area was found to have once housed an old cabin that had burned down in a small, unexplained fire, an incident never previously linked to the disappearance. The FBI immediately dispatched an investigative team to the site. What they found would completely alter the course of a case long thought to be buried in the past. The wooden cabin at the coordinates embedded in the photo no longer existed, just as the records from the 2003 fire had noted. However, the investigative team from the FBI and the Colorado State Police cordoned off the surrounding area and began excavating the remaining foundation buried beneath layers of fallen leaves and thick moss. After just 3 days, they uncovered the first human remains buried beneath old cement near the eastern wall. Initial analysis indicated they belonged to a young male approximately 1.80 meters tall with 2 fractured ribs sustained before death. DNA testing quickly confirmed it was Trent Halberg. 2 days later, 2 more bodies were discovered in a shallow pit behind the house, both wrapped in sleeping bags showing signs of blunt force trauma to the head. One was female, identified as Liora Baines. The other was Devante Cruz. All media attention converged on the San Isabel Mountains. The victims' families were informed privately, then later held a press conference with the FBI. For the first time in 21 years, the 3 students were confirmed dead, and the positioning of their bodies revealed they had not died at the same time. Forensic assessments concluded that Trent died first, while Devante and Liora may have been held captive for at least 2 days before being murdered. During the excavation, a peculiar item was found beneath a rotted floorboard, a cloth-bound notebook, its edges slightly singed, but most of it still legible. Inside were handwritten entries in blue ink, cryptic symbols, and journal-like passages detailing the life of a hidden group living in the forest whose identities were unknown, using the cabin as a hideout between 2001 and 2003. One entry read, "They came from Boulder, seemed unsuspecting. The one with the camera was too curious. Had to act before sunrise. The red-haired girl knows more than she lets on." Handwriting analysis led to another clue. It matched that of an anonymous letter sent to the McPherson police station in 2004 containing a single line, "No one is missing. They've simply been returned to where they belong." At the time, the letter was dismissed as irrelevant. Now it became a critical piece of the puzzle. Fingerprints on the notebook led to a man named Elias Farron, once an art student in New Mexico, who had gone missing in 2001, never to be found. In 2023, he was seen for the first time on a security camera identified as the homeless man who had left the phone at the Kansas bus stop. Arrested in May of 2023, Elias, living under a false name and without identification, initially denied all involvement. But after scar-matching DNA analysis and comparison with old gas station footage, he was forced to confess he had once lived with the hermit group in the forest cabin and had witnessed the killing of the 3 students. "None of us knew how to stop," Elias stated in his recorded testimony. "They weren't supposed to be there. We didn't want anyone to leave." He did not commit the murders himself, but helped hide the bodies, burned down the cabin, and then vanished. The phone he had kept for 20 years, then abandoned it as a belated form of atonement. The case was theoretically closed, but what shocked the public most was this. How did 3 innocent students happen to walk into the heart of an off-the-grid network hidden in the deep forest? And why had it never been uncovered until now? On August 18, 2023, more than 2 decades after the disappearance, 3 coffins were brought back to Boulder, Colorado, the place where that seemingly harmless trip had begun. A joint funeral was held on the university campus where old friends, teachers, and family members gathered, placing faded photographs on the memorial table. The atmosphere was heavy, not from sudden grief, but from the hollow sense of a belated ending, the conclusion of something many had once hoped was not true. The verdict for Elias Farron was delivered in November of the same year. Although he did not directly cause the deaths, he was convicted of harboring criminals, destroying evidence, and being indirectly involved in the deaths of the 3 students. When asked why he had kept the phone for 21 years and then suddenly exposed it, Elias simply said, "I thought of them every night. I couldn't sleep peacefully. I wanted someone to find it. But not me." The case was closed. The cabin had long since been burned down, the land fenced off by the authorities and removed from travel maps. But questions continued to linger in the minds of the community. How could a group of hermits live in the forest for 2 years without being discovered? Was anyone besides Elias still alive? Had someone ever reported something that was overlooked? And how many other cabins might still exist in the forests of America? Places someone once stepped into, never to return. But the story no longer belonged to an open file. It belonged to memory. To the quiet warning, etched into the hearts of those who once believed the mountains and forests were places to seek freedom and peace, forgetting that sometimes the most terrifying thing doesn't come from nature, but from those who choose to disappear from society. With what was unearthed, what was found, and what was confessed, the federal authorities concluded Devante Cruz, Liora Baines, and Trent Halberg were murdered in the Sangre de Cristo forest in mid-June 2002, and now they have finally been brought home. If you found this story thought-provoking, please leave a like and share the video with others who are also intrigued by unsolved mysteries. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next stories where every detail could be a clue. Thank you for watching until the very end.